Welcome to another top table gaming video. In this video, we're going to be looking at the details that we know of so far about 40k 9th edition. Hi guys, how are we doing? Top Table Steve here. This is the first in what will be a lot of videos, I think, from myself and the other lads on the channel about Warhammer 40k 9th edition. It's an uber exciting time for anyone who already plays 40k or has been thinking about getting into 40k. Like myself of late, I've kind of been in and out of 40k, mostly out if I'm totally honest, for just over 12 months now. Anyone who watches the channel regular can look back our back catalogue of videos and we'll see that myself and Ben started to collect the Conquest magazines for Warhammer 40k, which were a great set of magazines, by the way. And we started to film a campaign using the models from the magazine, and it was a lot of fun, indeed. I took on the Ultramarines and Ben started to collect the Death Guard. Do check those videos out, because although they are not the finished article, a lot of how we film the battle reports is how we are going to film 40k battle reports, should I say, for Warhammer 40k in the future. So why have we decided to have 40k on the channel? Well, 40k is one of those games that, like I just said previously, I've touched on in the past, myself and Ben. And Jay also knows quite a lot about 40k. He works in and around the gaming industry, specifically works for Element Games. And obviously Jay needs to know a lot about each individual games because of his job. Now 40k being probably, I mean, don't shoot me here, the biggest tabletop gaming system out there, player base anyway. He obviously knows quite a bit about it. So what we're going to do with 9th edition being re-released, it means I can kind of put a hold, because before they announced that the 9th edition rules were being released, we were in talks literally during lockdown at some point to start filming 40k content and to ironing out any creases we had in our knowledge of 8th edition rules. They announced the release, and what this has done for me is it means that I have a little bit of breathing space now, because I've got between now and when the rules drop to sort of plan what kind of content I want to do, get sort of the basis of how it's going to look and things like that all sorted prior to the game coming out. And everybody is starting from the same point, which is nice. We'll be learning the game as we go, and we'll be learning the game and the new rules with you guys and everybody else who's playing 40k. So just before the world ended and we all went into lockdown, I did pick up Prophecy of the Wolf from Element Games. Space Wolves are my jam in a big way. They're the force that I've always had an eye on. Even before I was interested in playing 40k, I picked up some Space Wolf models just to paint for fun and have on my shelf, and they're up there, which is great. The new Ragnar model and Ragnar profile is awesome, so I hear. So I'm looking forward to getting these guys painted up. I do have like Kill Team, we touched on Kill Team, and when we were painting up and doing the campaign with the Conquest magazines, I was painting up my Space Wolves alongside my Ultramarines. So I do have, I think I've got about 1500 points of Ultramarines, probably a little bit less of Space Wolves, but it will be Space Wolves, which is the army that I collect and build. I'm going to do this, one of the things which I'll mention shortly later on in the video is the campaign type system that 9th edition that they've hinted at, which is great for me, because I really want to have a story behind my force and build it dependent on what happens in the games and things like that. Kind of reminds me of, obviously no one's seen it yet so we don't know exactly, but it kind of reminds me of the idea of, you know, I've played battle companies for Middle Earth. I really like that, really like the progression of your heroes and your characters and building them up, so that really does work for me. What are you guys going to collect? It'll be fantastic to hear about your guys building your forces and, you know, getting that campaign mode going and building up your heroes and hearing all about it. Obviously I'll be sharing it with you guys on the channel, so you'll be able to follow my Space Wolves and whichever force that Ben used. And I've got a feeling that Jay has been hinting at using Chaos Space Marines. So it's going to be really cool. We're going to have a lot of different aspects and different armies that we can use, because I know Ben already has Death Guard and I've already got Ultramarines, like I said, so we can have a good mix, and hopefully we'll get some guests on, get their armies on as well on the table, and also get them on just to talk about their armies, to talk about the different tactics and things like that. So I have waffled on for long enough about me looking forward to 9th edition and the channel looking forward to 9th edition. What have we got to look forward to so far that we kind of know about? Up to now, everything that's been announced has been received in a pretty positive fashion. Obviously, it's the internet, you're going to get people who are complaining about this, that and the other, but generally across the board, it seems pretty positive. A lot of the changes which have been hinted at kind of either iron out things that were a bit clunky in 8th edition or things that just generally didn't work. So one of the things that they touched on in the Warhammer community releases, which are like every other day now, is match play and the point scoring system for like primary objectives. So now we have secondary objectives, and the primary objective ways of scoring points are being capped. And what that basically means, my interpretation of it is anyway, you're always going to get those draws, or you're always going to roll for a certain scenario when you've got an army that it's not beneficial for, but your opponent has, and they already have the upper hand. Having those secondary objectives means that, how can I put this? There might be an objective that you think, I have no chance against that army of taking that objective, but these secondary objectives, I could do A, B and C, and it keeps me in the game. It keeps me up and around there, and it might force my opponent to make a bit of a mistake, blah blah blah, onwards. So yeah, secondary objectives are a massive like thumbs up from me, basically. I think any way that sort of brings a bit of difference to the game that you already know, rather than, I mean, a very one-dimensional, there's the target, we've got to go for that, and both of you are just going for the same thing. Having little offshoots, if you like, of different things and ways of scoring points is definitely a good thing. A lot of the advertisements that you'll see, the little sort of cartoon things and the caricatures of people playing the 9th edition 40k, you will notice that it has like different shots. It has a shot where someone's playing like on a very smaller skirmish style board, and then there's another one where people have got like a bigger board and it's packed full of miniatures. What they're trying to say is that you can play 40k in different game sizes. So you have up to 500 points, which is combat patrol, up to 1,000 points, which is incursion, up to 2,000, which is strike force, and then up to 3,000, which is called onslaught. And these are not, they're not set, so it's not either 500, 1,000, 2,000 or 3,000 that you play, it's up to. So if it's anything up to 1,000, it's classed as the incursion way of playing, and each one lets you have a different amount of things that you're allowed in your force. Again, I'm not a massive sort of rules guru on 40k, I'm still very wet behind the ears, but basically what it means, you can have so many detachments depending on the size that you go for. So obviously you'd pick that, you and your opponent would pick that, or you go to an event that might be you know, an incursion event or strike force event, and you know how many detachments and different things that you're allowed within those points. So they've also changed the way that command points work. For me, someone who only sort of started to play the game briefly when the Conquest magazines come out, so it's probably about 12 months ago, command points were kind of the latter stages of how I learned the game. I learned all the basics, and then I started to bring in all the different things like command points and such. So when we kind of sort of backed away from 40k a little bit, but not intentionally, we just got busy in real life and what have you, we were only just starting with the command points within the game, so it's all still very, very new to me. But from what I can work out, basically dependent on, like we just mentioned, the amount of points that you're playing, you get a set amount of command points for that, rather than just being able to build your force in a way where you're awarded command points, and by doing, you know, building your list in certain ways, by having multiple detachments and things like that, you get more and more command points. Both players start off, so if you're playing up to 1,000 points, both players get the same amount of command points, and then depending on your build, command points are deducted from that amount, if that makes sense. So things like, you know, soup lists, which are like mix and matching lists just to get the best things from each different type of list, you kind of get penalised for, which for me is great, because I'll be a narrative type player anyway. Obviously I like a bit of competitiveness, but generally I like my armies to look like an army rather than just a collection of models. And have quite a narrative feel to them, especially playing Space Wolves. I don't want to just drop other things in there just to get a benefit that's a little bit unfair or one-sided. And apparently in 8th edition this was quite a big thing, and you know it could kind of sway the game before you even started, depending on your list build, you know, and how many command points that you had to start the game with. And nobody wants to play that game where you're already chasing your tail from the get-go just because you know you're at a disadvantage because you've got way less command points than your opponent. So this is a really good way of changing that, and what it does is it's not saying that you can't do the things that you did before, it's just that rather than getting awarded for sort of being a little bit sneaky and putting things in your list that shouldn't really be there, you're getting penalised for it, which is, again, thumbs up from Steve for that. That's really good. So as well as that, you've got the 4 different points types, which is 500, 1,000, 2,000 and 3,000. You get 3 command points at 500, 6 command points at 1,000, 12 command points at 2,000, 18 command points at 3,000. And then obviously you have your modifiers on that, so you might have negatives then for bringing things in. It is a really good way of doing it. I really like it, and what it does is as soon as you bring in I think correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, guys, again, you know, just my wording might be a little bit off because I'm quite new, but for every detachment that you bring in you lose 3 command points. I think that's what they said. But if one of your detachments has your warlord in it, you kind of get them back. Well, basically what it means is that you get that detachment without any penalty. So yeah, it's great, and it's like I say, a way of keeping a force looking like an actual narrative force rather than just a mishmash of things that are horrible to play against. So that's massive. Yeah, keep that up, Games Workshop. We also have a new phase in the game. We don't know too much about this. It's the command phase. I think it's going to be a phase pre-move phase. So I think basically what you're going to do is you're going to sort of lay out your tactics for that turn. Whether that's like a I go, you go thing, we're not too sure yet. So sure, we'll find out. But it just adds another dimension to the game, again, which can only be a positive. There were certain things within the game that kind of slowed down or messed with the flow of the game, that you know, things that you were doing, like I say, within different phases. So if it is what people are saying it's going to be on Facebook and in the different groups that I've been reading, they're going to take some of that out, which slows the game down, have its own phase, so it's a lot quicker, a lot smoother, and a lot more liquid, and works quite well. It's also been said right from the get-go that there are going to be points changes and things are going to increase in points. How this is going to work with the current codexes, I'm not too sure. They said that all your codexes are still fine to use and up to date. Yeah, I'd have to wait to see what happens with that. But basically what that kind of means straight off the bat is that things costing more. So a 500-point game or a 1,000-point game is going to have less models in it in 9th than it would have had in 8th. Which is going to make the game a little bit smoother. Hopefully it's going to speed the game up a little bit, but then also we're bringing in a new phase. So whether that balances out the fact that they've brought in an extra phase of the game and the game timescales are kind of similar, and maybe that's why they've done it, we're not too sure. But yeah, not heard too much about that, so I'm going to keep my ear to the ground for that. Other thing that we've sort of heard is that the bigger things in 40k that kind of felt like a bit of a wet wafer, excuse my wording, I could have said something else but I won't, we're on YouTube, are actually going to feel like big things that you've paid good points for, and they're going to be able to do a lot of damage. So that's a big thumbs up. That's going to be good. As well as that, obviously less models means for newer players, I mean, I've got tons of models anyway, but for newer players that's great because it's cheaper for them to get in. So at entry level it's cheaper, they don't have to buy as many models, and they can build a force with less models than they would have done in 8th. So anything like that helps people get into the game easier is a massive bonus for everyone. It's a massive bonus for the communities because we're getting more players to play against. It's a massive bonus for Games Workshop because it's more customers. It's just a win-win across the board, really. And kind of on that subject, a couple of things I want to touch on. I did mention like codexes, and I'm not sure how the points change things are going to affect that, but it has been said now that in 9th, if you purchase a codex in book form from GW, you get access to the PDF form of that book also, and so it's not 2 separate things to buy, which is fantastic. I mean, I always thought that's how it should have been. Really, you've already paid for the book. You should at least. I kind of understand why. I don't know how. I don't want to get into different subjects like, you know, the piracy of different materials and things like that. But I'm not sure how they're going to stop that sort of being manipulated. But I'm all for it. I mean, you'll still get people who will want the physical and the PDF copy, so that's great. I mean, I wouldn't just want a PDF copy of rule books. I like to have a physical book also to flick through and read. So I'm hoping, you know, the good nature of people will you know, stop that getting manipulated. Like I say, there's always a minority, but, you know, fingers crossed that'll be the way they go forward with most of their source books and different codexes and things like that. Not just for 40k, for everything else. Games Workshop, that would be fantastic. Alongside that, they are bringing out an app. There already is an AOS app. I don't play AOS, but I know that Jay does, and other people that I've heard raving about the AOS app. So, I mean, there are third-party army building programs on there, you know, browser-based programs and things like that. But having an official Games Workshop one is beneficial in a lot of ways. It just means it's going to be up to date. So every time an FAQ drops or a new source book drops, it's going to be up to date, right? It's going to have everything in it that it should have in it. So you're not waiting for someone to update it. So that's really good. And just having that kind of support from the manufacturers of the game that you're playing, I think is really good. Everything's official, everything's spot on. You know, there's not going to be any. I mean, there might be the odd teething problems and things like that, but generally everything's going to be as you'd expect it to be. We're also getting some new basic stratagems, which is usable by, you know, when you can use that, the stratagems that you can use with anyone. I'm trying to get my words out. The stratagems you can use that anyone can use, you know, the universal, if you like, stratagems. They've added some of those, which is always a good thing, and some of them are going to be better suited to different points levels and different sizes of games and different styles of armies and things like that, along with a lot of new scenarios. So all these things add to the immersion and different ways of playing 40k, which is good. So it sort of keeps it fresh, stops it going stale. Yeah, it's just definitely, it feels like this has been thought through a lot. And when I watched the live stream when they first announced 9th, from hearing them speak and the people that they had involved with playtesters and things like that, they've took a lot of information on board from the actual people who are playing the game and the things that they would like to see and the things that they thought didn't work in the previous incarnation. So this is all massive from Games Workshop. This is them listening to the community, and, you know, hopefully, I'm from a Middle Earth background. Excuse me, I'll tap my mic then. I'm from a Middle Earth background, so I know that that was the case there, and it wasn't always the case with AOS and 40k. So this is a massive step in the right direction, and yeah, it's good stuff. So again, another massive thumbs up there for GW. So probably I've left the most controversial thing to last. I say controversial, it's not controversial to me. I don't think it's controversial to probably 80% of existing players, and like I say, it won't be controversial to anyone who's new coming into the game. They brought out a table, which I'll probably stick here somewhere, which suggests new minimum board sizes to play the different points levels on. It does actually say that, you know, it doesn't say they're not set in stone yet. I think in the future they will be. Maybe in 12 months they'll be the standard. I know a lot of the TOs and the big event organisers have been talking online, and are already talking about implementing now, which I think is a really good idea. It has its positives and its negatives. The negatives are for people, TOs, people who've made custom boards, or, you know, they've set up tournaments and they've had tables made at 6x4, because I think at 3000 it goes up to something like 90 inches, if I'm not mistaken. Excuse me. So there's a few things like that, but I'm sure that there is very good reason why these board sizes have been suggested. Obviously these games have been play tested, these rules have been play tested to death, and I think anything that brings you a little bit closer together and gets the action going straight off the bat is always a good thing. Tournament play rather than spending half of your time just manoeuvring and trying to sort of outwit and get that I know some people like that, but generally for me, I'm the kind of player that's what gets stuck in, and you know, you're closer together, you can do more quicker, and deployment will become more key than it ever was. So maybe that needs to come into your thoughts as a general when you're picking your army, what you'd like to be dropping on the battlefield. But I'm all for it. I don't see the problem. It also means as a TO you can fit more tables into your events, which is good, right? That's a good thing. So yeah, big thumbs up. So 9th edition, guys. What do you want to see? Is there anything that I've spoke about? Is there anything that's been announced? Because probably by the time I release this, there'll have been more announcements that you're happy with, that you're not happy with. Are you worried about the direction it's going in? Are you happy about the direction it's going in? What do you want to see on Top Table Gaming 40k wise? We're definitely going to be doing battle reports. We're hopefully going to get some people on who know what they're talking about with 40k, and be able to do a lot of different kind of how can we say, like talking about different armies and strategies and ways to play, etc, etc, etc. And hopefully we'll get some faces on that you may know from other places, let's just say that. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm like pumped for it. I've got my Space Wolves, they're ready to go. I've got Ragnar and a load of other Space Wolves there in the box. I've got a ton of Marines in this box. So yeah, bring it on. I can't wait. I'm gonna get my Space Wolves painted up to about 1,000 points, and then I'm gonna go from there. I've probably already got 1,000 points, but I'm gonna add some cool stuff in there. Obviously Ragnar straight off the bat. We do have this weekend another announcement, and I think on Warhammer TV they're going to be opening the new box. So we'll actually find out if it is Necrons and Ultramarines, and all them fancy new models that we've had sneak peeks of are going to be in there. I know that we'll definitely at the channel be picking up one of the box sets as soon as we possibly can and getting our teeth stuck into it and filming some content for you guys. So yeah, please do, if you are interested in 40k content, check back in our back catalogue. Make sure you click subscribe and also click the bell to be notified when we release videos. You will not be disappointed. The things we have planned, I don't want to spoil it, but it's cool. Yeah, keep watching, guys. I will see you in the next video. I've been Top Table Steve. Take care, keep washing those hands, and I'll see you there.